News Radio 700 WLW.
Everywhere you turn, every time you click on something, swipe, go to work, listen to the big one, the news, AI, artificial intelligence. How do I get away from it? You can't. You're using it now. You don't even realize it. Data centers are being built almost as fast as my grass is growing right now with the rain. It's a Saturday Sterling, 700 WLW. Glad you're along. Matt Rosen is the head man in charge, the founder, the CEO of Aleda.com. And I don't know that it's even possible to do fully what I said in the tease for this, so I feel kind of bad about it. I don't want to be like a bait and switch misrepresentative kind of like character here on the radio or otherwise. But the idea of planning college and future-proofing your career or your kids or your business at this point, I don't know how you future-proof it or AI-proof it. But you got to embrace it like everything else. They did it with the telegraph. They did it with the telephone. You did it with the fax machine. You did it with the computer. It's in your hand and it's on your wrist right now. And Matt Rosen, you're with Sterling on 700 WLW. How are you this fine Saturday?
I'm doing well. Good afternoon. Thanks for having me on the show.
Appreciate you being here. So, people are saying, oh, how do we get into the game? We're already using AI in all sorts of ways on a regular basis, whether it's just streaming on the iHeartRadio app in some fashion or otherwise. It's here, it's been here, and it is developing and changing as we speak. What do you tell someone right now? 35 years old, a couple of kid's going to be out of school soon, thinking about college, and at 35 years old, you've got some good earning in front of you, and you're trying to navigate these waters to say what's next and what is now. What do you say to them right now in this transitional period?
Yeah, you got to dig in. I mean, the time is now. I mean, these tools are everywhere. I still think we're in very early innings of how these tools are being used. You know, I've got a 400-person consultancy that advises mid-sized clients all day long. And I think a lot of employers are still just kind of scratching the surface. I think it's still really early. It's not too late to get in the game. We're encouraging our team to use it daily. In fact, if you don't use AI to do your work at Aleda, you won't be at Aleda for very long. And we're looking for people out there that have both AI skills and critical thinking skills and are able to apply AI and their knowledge to solve critical problems. And so if you're not going into a field of work where you're critically thinking and using the knowledge you've learned or using AI to help you be better, you're probably at risk. But I think we're still early in this cycle of technology adoption is the good news.
Matt Rosen's the founder and CEO of Aleda.com with Sterling on the big one. So we're in the early stages. So if you were looking at this, because we hear, and there's a difference between, say, generative AI and some of the AI that we've heard that has escaped control in the last week to a month.
Yes.
3 or 4 different escapes. And you're like, well, that's like letting a kid out of the house when you're not paying attention. What is the difference between that and everyday exercise and utilization of AI in a business here in the tri-state or in the Metroplex of Dallas area where you are or anywhere else? Because there is a distinct difference.
Yeah, generative AI is where you're going to a model and you're prompting it. You're saying, hey, help me review this article, help me review this email, help me come up with a PowerPoint, something like that. What you're seeing is the next gen of it, which is called agentic AI, where this is AI. You're giving it a basic task, and you're saying, here's a bunch of tools and skills to help you do this. And, there's attacks we saw. Those were highly trained AIs with a lot of capability, and they were said, hey, go figure out where you can break into things, because that's where a lot of these models are being used, is to help harden the system. Most software that's in use today, well, all software that was built today primarily is built by humans, and there's holes in it. And so you have AI being used to run cyber attacks so that people can fix that code so that bad actors can't get the AI and do it themselves. The thing is, these tools are trickier than we thought they'd be, but it's just like you tell an employee to go do a task and giving them no direction. They might do everything possible, including ways you never would have thought of, and that's exactly what happened. So I think it's gotten a lot of negative press about these rogue AIs. These things were doing exactly what they were told to do. They just did it in ways people didn't think might happen. But that's what's really interesting about this technology is there's going to be a lot of opportunities figuring out how to work with it, apply it to different problems, and also prepare for the bad things it could be used to do. So I view the future ahead in a very optimistic way for those that embrace it.
Matt Rosen's the founder, CEO of Aleda.com with Sterling on the big one, talking about AI, maybe AI proofing your career. Is that even possible to AI proof your career? I mean, you're overlooking this consultancy. You've got a lot of people working for you. You have customers and client base that you work with. As you navigate this, is there any way that one can truly AI proof a career, whatever even that means?
Yeah, I mean, we can't envision what AI is going to do 10 years from now. In fact, I've got a 10th grader and a 7th grader, and I was talking to my wife this morning about what should we tell them to major in? How do we make sure that they don't become reliant on these tools because they are using it to help them with their work? How do we make sure they learn how to think? So it's something I'm worrying about right now with a daughter who'll be in college 3 years from now. And so some of the fields you can think about for those listeners out there, things where you need to be physically present. Healthcare is going to be a big one. Financial services are going to be a big one. People are going to need to be involved in these. I think anything in and around AI is going to be important. I think there's no way to completely AI proof anything. However, I think you need to become well-rounded, be a good communicator, be able to critically think, and be able to use the tools to solve whatever field you go into, whether it's mathematics or English or philosophy. It's going to have to be that and AI and critical thinking. People are going to have to be more multidimensional. I think that's the way you stay AI-proof is if you do the same thing every day, day in and day out, and you don't critically think, your job's at risk of being taken by AI. But if you upskill yourself, if you learn how to do your job better using AI and become more effective at what you do, I think there's always going to be a demand for those that can teach themselves to learn and apply tools for their benefit and their employer's benefit.
There's really never been an easier time to gain knowledge base than ever because it's literally in the palm of your hand. I guess the question is if it's accurate, correct information when you're trying to sort of immerse yourself in it. What is that combination of technical skills, soft skills, and understanding the application, whether, if you are that 35 or 40-year-old and you've got kids like you just described that, 10th grade, 7th grade, you're trying to navigate your career, but you're also trying to give your kids that opportunity and a step up moving ahead. What is the right mixture of these skills? Because it does vary on the type of business interest that you have, but the whole world seems to literally be changing under our feet.
Yeah, it's changing quickly, and I can't give you an exact percentage per each. But I think no matter what field you're in, understanding how AI applies for it. And the great thing about AI is you can go into any one of the leading models and it's virtually free and ask, hey, I'm a teacher. I need help with lesson planning. I'm a doctor and I need to get some continuing education. You can literally go into these tools and tell them what you do and ask where they can help. And they've gotten way better at not hallucinating. You talked about information being wrong. And if you're worried about that, you run one AI model against a different AI model. I do that all the time. In fact, in preparing for this interview, I took a few articles, I ran it through ChatGPT and Claude, and I said, hey, help me think about things we might need to cover on the interview. And it gave me lots of different talking points, things to think about, majors people could go into. And so I use it as a tool to help me brainstorm and think and prepare. But so it's really a combination of those skills that are the soft skills, that are the critical thinking skills, that are the knowing how to use AI to do your job better. That's going to make great employers in the future. And as we're interviewing folks, we're expecting them to know how to use AI. We'll teach them exactly how we want them to use it, but we expect them to come up with a base level familiarity because day one on the job, you're going to be writing code or doing things with data. You're going to be using AI to help you. And so we're looking for people that are curious, people that are self-starters, and people that want to embrace it versus there's no sticking your head on the sand on this one and hoping it goes away because that's just not going to happen.
The founder and CEO of Aleda.com is Matt Rosen, giving us some time on a Saturday afternoon, Sterling, on the big one. So as we sit here now, you say you should know how to use AI. And I've had this conversation with some people younger than me. I'm in my early 50s. I've had some conversation with people older than me, and they say, well, what is it? And I say it's in everything that you are already doing, more or less, unless you're somehow just, drawing on paper and using your hands to do something. So when you say you have to have ability to use it, if you're already searching on a platform right now in a browser situation or what have you, a search engine, or if you're utilizing a music streaming service or what have you, like the iHeartRadio app, in some fashion we are already using it. So someone who's scared, who has fear, because many people are fearful of technology and change just in general. What do you tell them when you say you have to use it? They're already using it. Help that step be easier for them. Can you break that down?
Sure. If you're going in and doing a Google search today, that is the way most people search. Google has embedded Gemini into their search. You can turn it off if you want. I advise that you don't. That's an easy way to get started with it. In fact, my wife is a physician. She is a little bit younger than me. We're both, she's late 40s, I'm early 50s. And, she's slow to apply technology. In fact, a lot of professionals are. But, I got her started with Gemini, just asking it some basic questions, getting her comfortable with it. And what's interesting for physicians, there's this, I think it's OpenAI. I'm forgetting there's a certain one where you have to log into your prescriber code, but it gives you access to all this medical information. And now she's using that. In fact, today she's, preparing for some exams, and we downloaded ChatGPT to her desktop. I started getting her comfortable with that. And not everyone has the CEO of a consulting firm to work with them day to day to get them comfortable. But they probably have somebody in their life that is more comfortable and can gradually get them more comfortable. But those were some of the steps we took, was, using Gemini within the Google browser, which was somewhere she was going all the time. It was finding access to an AI specific to her field. And then it was downloading a more powerful AI, which is the ChatGPT desktop, to her Mac, and start connecting it to things to help her be more efficient and effective, day to day. And those are some of the same steps I went through to teach myself. So today I've got Gemini, ChatGPT, Claude, Cursor, Lovable, all these tools running on my desktop. But I kind of did them one at a time and got more curious and saw what I could create with them to kind of teach myself what I could do with these tools. And then obviously as an organization, we're building tools for our clients and built some of our own frameworks that we use internally to do things like write reviews and marketing materials and proposals. So it's just pick one thing, start somewhere, and as you get to use it, you'll get to be more comfortable with it. So don't feel like you have to be an expert out of the gate day one. Just make it part of your daily use, once a day is a great way to start.
Talking to Mike Rosen, he's the founder and CEO of Alata.com. That's ALLATA.com. I'll put it out, and already did actually on X at Sterling Radio. So you talk about your kids, and it's perfect because there's so many people like you right now driving around the tri-state, or maybe listening to this podcast on a random other day, maybe in the dead of winter, and I go, oh, I'm sorry, it's cold. In the midst of that, though, you mentioned about wondering what your 10th and 7th grader would maybe path of study that they might go after. So that leads to the question that for the better part of a decade, talking about needing more tradespeople, not necessarily college or universities. They've been unfairly, I think, under attack, because I think a university or college education is very beneficial in a lot of ways. But to answer people who say, I don't know if traditional university degree study is necessary, whether it's AI-related careers maybe or otherwise. What do you tell someone in that situation? Because, there's courses, self-study, as you mentioned, boot camps of some sort, but there's a shortcut and there's a long way to get into this. It's interesting because of how fast it's all moving.
What's interesting was I started my career, 27 years ago. Most of the people where I applied, they wanted to make sure you had a 4-year degree. I can tell you, when I started Alata, I didn't feel like that was necessary. I hired a lot of people that had gone through a computer science boot camp. Heck, I had a kid as young as 19 working for me that had gone to a boot camp. It was quite effective, where they'd gone to a 12-week training, and we gave them some additional training and put them to work. Because you can learn a lot of these things on your own. In fact, we took forklift drivers and turned them into software engineers, trying to give people a chance, at a higher paying career. But when it comes down to it, these trade schools are great. And we have a shortage of truckers and electricians and plumbers and skilled craftsmen. I think those are excellent career choices for someone who might not want to go to a 4-year university. I would like my daughters to both go to 4-year universities. We're going to be, somewhat careful in helping them figure out what major and which path to take. I think many colleges, I'm hoping to see this change, want you to declare a major right out of the gate, but at 18, you don't really know what you want to do. So we're going to look for universities that have a later declaration of major, because college is a huge transitionary state as you're learning to be an adult. It was an invaluable experience for me, but I have a degree in biomedical science. I didn't get into med school. I went into sales. I ended up in consulting. I ended up running a consulting firm. So the path I took was not a linear one. And I think that happens with a lot of people. Yeah.
It's an interesting
thing. But I learned
thing.
how to learn.
And that right there is the key, is learning how to learn. A lot of people just shut it down and refuse to change. And that has always been a problem from the beginning of time as we know it. If you don't embrace change, you get left behind and end up being carnage on the road behind. That's a difficult thing. What have I not asked, Matt Rosen, in relation to this issue that you think is relevant to someone in any place at this point who may be in earshot of this conversation?
I think, one thing that doesn't get enough airtime is what's good about AI. We hear about all the bad,
right?
The rogue AI, the data centers, the drain on electricity and water. Not enough people are talking about what's good about AI and what difference will it really make for us.
Yeah. And saying that, what is good about it? Because so many people are scared and so many people say negative things. The only negative thing I can see is the laziness factor where people stop using their brains fully, but perhaps we will end up using them for other things. Or, it's a weird animal, right? I mean, that whole concept.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, that is another negative, is that people stop thinking. In fact, I've got another radio host I talk to all the time that's worried the world's going to turn into the Terminator where Skynet takes over. I'm more worried about the world turning into idiocracy where nobody knows how anything works anymore 500 years from now.
Could that be both? We could be both.
It could. It could. The computers run us because we don't remember how they work. But I view the positive side is people are going to be more effective, than ever before that embrace it. I do think in the field of medicine, I don't know if we'll face a lot of the diseases we've seen in 10, 20 years from now. I mean, people are already figuring out how to elongate life. I think we're figuring out how to target a lot of specific cancers. I mean, Mayo's catching pancreatic cancer 3 years earlier.
Amazing.
Doing scans. So, I mean, there's just some amazing things. I mean, I think this thing's going to take us to space, to the moon, to Mars and beyond, and solve problems we didn't even know were problems or couldn't have even comprehended. I think it's going to bring a lot of exciting innovation across a lot of different industries. I think it's going to lower the cost of goods and services, and people are going to have more time to pursue other interests, but they're going to have to figure out what those interests are because humans need a purpose.
I don't want to be the prophet of doom. Does what you just say, though, lead to more unemployment? I mean, we've heard about abundance and all this other stuff, but you have to earn money somehow. Costs will go down, but everybody wants to get paid.
Yeah, you're going to have to use it to do something, or I hate to say universal, income, but if these data centers are truly throwing off enough profit to fund cities, it's an interesting proposition. I don't see that happening, and what I've seen happen since AI has launched, the organizations that we work with that are using it well are hiring. We are hiring, they are hiring. It's the people that aren't embracing that they're not hiring and are stalling. Every technology revolution, whether it was, the industrial age, the locomotive, the mainframe computer, the desktop computer, everyone's like, all the jobs are going away, and then they don't. And then there's more, and the jobs change. And that's happened with every cycle. I don't see this one being any different.
There you go.
I really don't.
We'll leave you with that. We'll hope to do this again. I've really appreciated the conversation and the perspective. Matt Rosen is the founder and CEO of Allata.com, ALLATA.com. Thank you for making time. We'll catch up again soon. I hope you'll do it.
Yeah, thanks, Sterling. Take care.
You too. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.